That was a piano transcription of Bach's First Cello Suite for solo cello. I believe it represents the amazing ability to transcribe Bach's music into other instruments. This was just from cello to solo piano. But many people have done that. Synthesizers have been used to transcribe his music. And of course, it brings me to the point of why I would pick a piece by Bach as an example. Many years ago, when I was singing in different choirs and choruses and churches included, we became very, very familiar with all of Bach's choral music. And when I was a medical student at Yale, I actually had a job, a paid job, actually singing in the Yale choir, and it was a great learning experience for me to be able to sing all the repertoire. In the third year of medical school, last summer, before I would be able to begin my internships, I went to Europe specifically to visit the church that Bach had composed most of his choral music, most of his religious music. And it was sort of a pilgrimage for me. I knew that I wouldn't have summers off for a long time with my medical training. And I was in East Germany. Leipzig was in East Germany. The year was 1968. It was June. I had driven from West Germany into East Germany. At the time, there was no recognition, the border, no recognition between the United States government and the East German government. It was solidly communist country, but I was not really interested in communism. I was interested in the music of Bach. I made my way into Leipzig through the border crossing, which itself was sort of traumatic. Got a hotel in Leipzig, and then made my way to the church, the Thomas Church. And there was his grave. And that was my first experience, I would say, in connecting with the reality of what Bach's world was like. Of course, things were quite different from the times when Bach lived to post-World War II. The city was bombed. It was quite a mess, to be frank. There was another church called the Nikolai Church, and actually the Nikolai Church was not that far away from the Thomas Church, and Bach also had duties there. And some of his great passions were first premiered there. I went to that church also. It was a Sunday actually, and the organist was still playing at the end of the service. And I had the courage to go and speak with him. My German was not very good, and he spoke some English, but somehow we communicated, and realized that I was an American specifically coming to Leipzig for this experience of being in places that Bach had worked. He invited me to lunch, and I went, and the next day we drove to some churches where Bach had actually played the organ. In one particular small church, the keyboard was the same that Bach had touched in 1725. And Bach had written a cantata for the inauguration of this organ. It was an amazing experience. Put my fingers and my feet on the pedal board of the same pedal board and manual that Bach had done. And the organ was a small organ, obviously. It was a small church, but it had survived the war and survived what the Germans did for the big organs was to melt down the pipes, so the original pipes were still there. I went back and sang with this choir of the Nikolai Church for the next 11 years. I would go every year to sing either a passion or another piece in a concert form. And many times this was a great experience to be able to sing in the same place that Bach's chorus had sung. And that's part of my interest in classical music and what I actually did in those years. I still was obviously doing my regular duties, including working on Interleukin 1, but every year I would make the time to go to East Germany to sing in these performances and also to visit other organs in other cities in East Germany. And that stays with me until today.